Hello, I'm Finley Hawkins, and this year I immersed every single day for an average of 4 hours and 20 minutes. In this video, I plan to talk about my current level, a mistake I made, and I'll give you the solution I came up with. And then I'll finish up the video by giving you 6 content recommendations so you can go off and do your own immersion. Before we get into my current ability, I'm just going to tell you my current stats, which is my number of immersion hours and the amount of Anki cards I have. This year I have done 1,606 hours and 40 minutes of active immersion. 41% of those hours was spent watching YouTube. 28.1% was spent on variety shows. 8.6% was spent on Twitch. 7.38% was spent on dramas, and 6.03% was spent on anime. And then as for my total number of Anki cards, right now I have about 3,000 cards in Anki, although I know I've deleted about 500 leeches. Migaku says I know about 4,000 words, but I also know that there's some fluff there, there's some like desmas and other words that I wouldn't necessarily count as words known. So I would estimate I've put about 3,500 words through Anki, and I would assume I know about that amount too, like considering Anki plus all the immersion I've done. Okay, so now you've got some context, I'm going to talk about my current ability. If any of you saw my previous video, I gave a percentage of how much I could comprehend of what piece of content. And although I do agree mostly with where my ability was at and my perspective on my ability at that time, a percentage is pretty vague and it's also very hard to come up with, and I don't want to fool you guys and I don't want to fool myself. So I'm going to talk about my slightly objective experience while immersing and what I can and can't do, just to give you a better representation of my ability. So first I'll start with YouTube, and then I'll talk about anime, and then whether I'm happy with my ability and whether I think this year was worth it. Okay, so now for YouTube content. So overall, I can enjoy a much wider range of content. So previously, at the 6-month mark, I was pretty limited to idle content, travel vlogs, and easier animes, where now I rely a lot less on visuals and a lot less on simplified speech. So nowadays, instead of being limited to a few domains, I can now enjoy a variety of content. So nowadays I might watch a talking head video, which is a similar one to what you're witnessing right now, streams, and I can listen to podcasts while just going around the house or walking, and my comprehension is good enough to enjoy and follow along with what's going on. And another difference from now to 6 months ago is 6 months ago I could pick out words here and there and even pick out sentences here and there, where nowadays it's much more common, doesn't happen all the time, but much more common for me to understand a string of sentences and then understand a person's overall point. And for a more concrete example, in this video, which I've linked in the description, I could understand and follow along with every story in the second half of the video. And it felt like there were no unknown words that affected my comprehension. And if there was, then I quickly understood what that word meant because of the context. You'll also notice that in this video, they are in a, say, Japanese pub where there's other noises going around. I don't think they're actually mic'd up, and there's no visual context to help my comprehension. And I think that is the biggest difference from my ability now to 6 months ago. Okay, so that's where the fun kind of ends. And I thought I'd talk about the negatives of my ability. Okay, so my comprehension is still inconsistent. And although sometimes I feel like I could almost talk to the person, engage in a conversation with them, and understand everything that they're talking about, or at least all of their main points to engage in conversation, there are also plenty of times where I just don't quite get the person's point, or they're talking and they're kind of losing me as they're saying more of the story, and I just can't follow along. And even if I do get the overall point, I can also miss a lot of details. And sometimes I can miss enough details for it to be an issue if I was in a conversation with that person. Earlier, I mentioned that I've been enjoying a lot more different domains now, which is true, but there's still some domains that I struggle with, or at least are a bit out of reach for me. And in particular, a lot of educational content, or at least intellectual content, I would say is fairly out of reach, where I won't necessarily be able to follow along with what they're talking about, all their points. And another domain that I struggle with in particular is comedy, but mainly the M1 Grand Prix. So I watched a bunch of episodes of the M1 Grand Prix, which is essentially where some of the best comedians in the world go up against each other to make everyone laugh, and whoever impresses the judges the most end up winning the M1 Grand Prix and can go on a bunch of variety shows in the future, and their life's basically sorted. But what the M1 kind of constitutes is two people get up on stage, they're generally talking quite fast, they're talking about sometimes abstract topics, or they're playing with words, they're making lots of cultural references, which I don't get yet, and there's no visual component, so there's just nothing I can grab onto. And with that, I would say I struggle quite a lot. Okay, so now with anime. With easier animes, like Spy Family, I can follow along with almost no issues, and it feels like I get the full nuance, or at least it feels like no unknown word would unlock some new meaning for me. And with these animes, I'd much rather watch them in Japanese than I would in English, which is a pretty new thing for me. Okay, so now with harder animes, so like Bleach, I can follow along with the plot and I'm never completely lost, but I do miss a lot more details. And there's plenty of times where someone will talk and I won't quite get their point, or I don't quite get what they're saying. Okay, and as for am I happy with my results? Yes, I am happy with my results, and the fact that I haven't really done anything. Although 1,600 hours is a lot and I have sacrificed a lot of different things for it, the actual process isn't particularly intense, and the fact that I feel like I've progressed quite a lot to the point where, say, I could go to Japan and in everyday situations someone would say something and it would just go and I'd get the meaning. That is pretty insane. But at the same time, like, I just feel like I should be further ahead than I am. Like, there's times, I remember telling my friend the other day, like, I was like, there was 3 sentences in a row that I didn't understand. Like, can you believe that? Like, can you believe that? And he couldn't. Like, and it is insane. I'm like a year of doing something 4 hours a day, and there's 3 sentences where I didn't know what was going on. Are you serious? Like, what kind of world is this? But being realistic, I feel like looking at other people's timelines, that it makes sense that I'm here and that I'm still struggling in certain domains and I still miss things. So I feel like everything's going to plan, and it has been worth it, for me at least. Okay, and now I'll talk about the mistake I made, and I'll talk you through what my solution was. Okay, the mistake I made was that I didn't think about the quality of my Anki cards. I fell into this trap of thinking I just need more cards and not thinking about what the cards are actually for, and that I actually need them to improve my comprehension, not just increase some arbitrary number in my Anki stats. So after months of pretty much taking any word I saw, I felt like I had just plateaued. It felt like I wasn't improving. It felt like I never picked out those new words in Immersion. Also, I was spending a ridiculous amount of time on Anki because my retention rate was just rock bottom, and I would spend so much time relearning words. Okay, so how did I solve this? And how did I get out of this plateau? So after many months of mining, repping, and then deleting cards, I found that the cards I remembered had 3 things in common. So first, the word was close to my level. Second, the word was likely to appear in my immersion within the next month. And third, the sentence on the card was I+1, which basically means that I knew every word apart from that target word. So nowadays, I'll make sure every card that I add has all 3 of these traits. And I get that some people say at the earlier stages can't afford to be as strict, especially say with I+1 sentences, because they just don't come up that often. And I think there you will have to just deal with the cards you've been dealt with and take whatever sentence you can. But for me, at my current level, I've just found that I am significantly more likely to remember a word if it appears in a I+1 sentence, if the word is close to my level, and if it's likely to appear in my immersion within the next month. So the results of doing this is my retention rate in Anki is now 95%, and some days hitting 100%. Because my retention rate is now so high, I spend way less time relearning cards, so my time spent on Anki has almost halved. And I can actually pick out way more of the words in my immersion, so I feel like my comprehension is now improving and I'm out of the plateau, finally. Okay, and now I'm going to give you my recommended / favourite channels. I'll probably speed run through these just to give them as fast as possible so you can go off and do your own immersion. Okay, so first, I'll briefly mention the Sakamichi groups, where if you didn't see my last video, from basically 0 to 6 months, I basically only watched these 3 idol groups. So Nogizaka, Sakurazaka, and Hanatazaka. And I won't ramble about them, but they typically talk in like a caretaker voice, like how a mum would talk to a baby. And the things that they would talk about is generally about the here and now and what's going on around them instead of like some abstract ideas. So I actually find it really helped me, at least at the beginning, because it was more comprehensible. My next channel recommendation is from a VTuber called Azki, or Azki. And she essentially just plays games like GeoGuessr, GTA, Among Us, like Lethal Company, and will play them with her friends. And it actually is very funny and very entertaining, in my opinion. And some of the stuff is genuinely more entertaining than some English stuff. And it sounds crazy because it's like a VTuber, like, that's weird. But trust me, there's some good stuff in there. My next content recommendation is a woman called Rebecca Miyama. And even though her name sounds English, that's just an alias and she's actually just full Japanese. She's a gadget YouTuber who talks about like desk tools or the type of speaker or phone or whatever she uses. And these videos tend to be very high quality, they're dense, and they have like clear audio. And in what a series I particularly like is a series where she talks with her friend about just any topic, but it's completely unscripted and it's just easy to listen to, say, while I'm walking or while I'm working. Okay, my next channel recommendation is a channel called Tokui's Video, which is essentially a channel from a famous comedian, and he'll go out to different, say, Japanese pubs, or he'll go camping, and he'll typically be with two of his, say, friends. And it's just nice to see how different people interact in an environment that I'll likely be in the future. Okay, and my final recommendation is a Twitch channel, or a Twitch girl, called Honopi, or Nishimura Honoka. And she's a former idol, and she plays games like Apex Legends or Valorant. And what I particularly like is that she's streaming, so it's typically like 4 to 7 hours. And also, just like the recommendation I mentioned before, it's nice to see her interact with her friends, especially because they're more within my age range. And one thing that I just want to mention is that last week, for New Year's, Honopi hosted a Apex Legends tournament. And if you know me, your boy likes Apex Legends, and there's a reason I've been watching a lot of her streams. And anyway, there was 20 teams. She and her friends were on one of them. Her other friends were on some of the other teams. Even some of her family members were there. And do you know who also was there? Your boy. As soon as she put that code up and said, oh, some of the viewers can join, I was right in there. And I ended up playing like for the whole day. And it was just so much fun. And the fact that I had learned at least enough of the language to understand the rules, understand when we're about to start, and understand what my teammates might have been like asking in the game. It was a phenomenal experience, and there is zero value in it for you. There's no reason why I should tell you. I just wanted to share it because I'm very happy that happened, and yeah. Okay, and that is it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it wasn't too choppy. I hope that you could at least get an idea of, say, my current ability and an idea of the mistake I made, so maybe you can avoid it in the future. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next update. Good luck with your immersion. And if you haven't started immersing yet, then start. Because it takes a long time, as you can see. I've immersed 4 hours every day this whole year and I'm still not fluent. If you start now, you'll be 1 hour closer. So, do it. And I'll see you guys later.